This week, we're taking a break to reflect on our last year of the podcast and talk about where we're going. Welcome to Kopec Explains Software, the podcast where we make computing intelligible.
It's hard to believe that we've been doing this podcast for a year, Dave.
Yes, the year went by really quickly. That means that this is our 52nd podcast. It's our anniversary podcast. And we've covered so many topics. It's amazing. What we're going to do today is kind of reflect on some of those topics, tell you about what some of our favorite episodes were, tell you about what the most popular episodes were, and also talk about where we're going in the future with this show. So we really first want to just thank everybody. We want to thank all the listeners. It's amazing how much growth we've had. We went from almost nobody listening the first week to a significant number of people listening now every week. And that's with basically no advertising, all just by word of mouth and people finding us in the podcast directories. There's one person I want to call out in particular, my boss, Scott. Scott, I know you're probably listening, so thank you so much because you've been a really big fan of ours and really helped us propel forward with your enthusiasm. So thank you so much. But we want to thank everybody, and we have listeners from all around the world. I was looking at the statistics just recently in Spotify, and I thought I would bring them up about our top 10 countries. Not surprising, our number one country is
the United States, where we're located.
Right, not a big surprise. But then the next 10, they're really all over the place. Singapore is number 2. We're big in Singapore. That's cool. We're big in India. That's number 3. The United Kingdom is 4. Philippines is 5. Finland is 6. Brazil is 7. Germany's 8. Norway's 9, and shout out to number 10, Czechia, also known as the Czech Republic, where my mom was born and grew up, and I have some ancestry from, so very cool that people are listening to us in the Czech Republic. Okay, so that's our top countries, but what were the most popular episodes over the last year? Now, of course, there's some bias towards the earlier episodes. We're very much a back catalog show, meaning that we have episodes that are evergreen. You can go back and listen to episodes from a year ago, and they're still just as useful as if you were listening to them this week. So if you're new to the show, I very much recommend that you go and check out our back catalog, because we have episodes about all kinds of different topics, everything from general information about basic software concepts to history of different pieces of software, to news and what's going on right now in the software world. So we have things all over the place, and you're really going to find something that interests you if you go back to the back catalog. But since we know it's kind of biased towards the earlier episodes, it's not surprising that the number one most listened to episode of ours of all time is
our second episode, What is an Operating System?
Yeah, and I think that was a good episode. So it was a nice way to start off the podcast, having a great second episode.
My assumption is that one of the reasons why that episode is so popular is that we all interact with operating systems, and it can be a term that's thrown around a lot, but it's really helpful to understand exactly what goes into it.
Absolutely. And we're going to mention a lot of different episodes in the next few minutes. I'm not going to put them all in the show notes because it's just too many, but you can just go back and look through in your podcast player of choice, our history, and you can go back to these earlier episodes. So I'll put the number of the episode, or we will put the number of the episode before every one that we say. So that's our most popular episode of all time. Our number 2 most popular episode is
What is Software? Our first episode.
Right, which I actually think is not one of our best episodes, but it just happens to be the first episode, so of course it's very popular when you look back, and since a lot of people do listen to our back catalog. Then our third most popular episode is
Episode 5, How Does the Internet Work?
Right, and that's a good episode. And then our fourth
Episode 27, Databases.
Which is a surprise to me. That seems to me like a pretty dry topic. I don't know if there's just a lot of people out there taking database classes, and so they wanted to get somebody else explaining what a database is to them than their professor, who might be really boring or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's a really popular episode. And then our last one, this is not a big surprise.
Episode 4, iOS versus Android.
Right, that's our 5th most popular episode of all time. I think that was also a really good episode. I teach mobile development. I used to work as an iOS developer, so it's a topic close to my heart. And I think it comes through in that episode. So I really recommend that one, episode 4, iOS versus Android. Okay, so those are the most popular episodes over the last year. And again, they're kind of biased towards our earlier episodes. I think we've had some great episodes the last couple of months. They just because people listen a lot to our back catalog, they're not as popular yet. But do check out our entire back catalog, and I think you'll find something you like. Now, let's talk about our favorite episodes. So, Rebecca, what are your favorite episodes from the whole show?
I mean, I have to say that our first episode, What is Software, while might not be technically our best, is one of my favorites, because it was just the beginning of this journey.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's the best episode, but there's some nostalgia there. Okay, what's your next?
So I personally find programming languages really interesting, and I really like learning about the history and what they're used for. So my next favorite episode would be episode 11, What is a Programming Language?
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, and it kind of lays the foundation for a lot of our later episodes. We did a lot of episodes about individual programming languages, and I recommend you listen to episode 11, What is a Programming Language, before you listen to those later episodes like What is Lisp or What is C, so that you have that context and you know some of the terms that I use in those episodes and what they actually mean.
And that goes along with what my next two favorites would be, episode 35 and episode 47, the C programming language and the C++ programming language. I just think that those are interesting programming languages that get used a lot, and it's pretty cool to do a dive into them and really understand what they're used for, who's using them, and how they developed the way they did.
Yeah, I like those episodes too, but my favorite episodes are more of the big picture conceptual episodes or more of the history episodes. So let me tell you about my 4 favorite episodes since you did 4 of your favorite episodes. My favorite episode probably of all time is episode 12, Open Source Software. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a class that I've taught over the last few years. I taught a class at the college level called Open Source Software Development, and it's also something I participate in. I work on and lead some open source projects. So it's something I really care about, something that I do a lot of reading about. I know a lot about the philosophy and the history of it. So I enjoy talking about it. I'm surprised these type of episodes are not more popular, and it seems like more of our more technical episodes are popular, but I really enjoy them. Another type of episode that I really enjoy is the history episodes, which again, I really enjoy it. Maybe our particular type of listener, it's not like your favorite thing, so I'm not sure we'll do a ton of them in the future, but it's an easy one for me to do because I read a lot of tech history, I read a lot of software history, and it's also one that I just love. So my second favorite episode is episode 38, The History of Mac OS, but you could take a lot of the history episodes and put them in my top 5 list. It was hard for me to pick, but I'm going to pick 2 other history episodes. My third favorite episode is episode number 24, The Browser Wars. And my 4th favorite episode is episode 16, The Personal Computer Revolution. I love all these topics. I read about these topics all the time. So I feel like I really am able to imbue some real background knowledge and some facts that you might not get everywhere else when I do these episodes.
And passion.
And passion, yeah. And I think it comes across my voice, although I really enjoy doing all of our episodes. Mm-hmm. I can't say that there was a topic that I really hated doing the last year. There were some I wasn't as excited about as others, but they kind of made sense for that week for whatever reason. And there's, we're recording this on a weekly basis. You do 52 episodes in a year. Not every episode is going to be your best work, but I think a lot of our episodes are really high quality. We put a lot of thought into what we're going to do in the future. We have a list of topics that we have in a shared board where we just keep thinking about, what do we want to do? What have we done so far? What makes sense based on what we've done before? Because oftentimes we kind of build things up. We'll do an earlier episode like that one on programming languages, then do specific programming languages. Or we'll do an earlier episode on the early history of personal computers, then we'll get into some later on personal computers. So we kind of try to prepare the order of the episodes in such a way that our listeners can follow along and build up, and we can refer back. That way we don't have to go and give you every single detail when we're talking about something that comes after an earlier topic. We can just say, hey, go listen to that earlier episode.
And we also talk about what we find interesting. What are things that are either going on in popular culture or in current events that we want to be talking about? And what are things, at least for me, that I'm curious about? What do I want to learn more about this week?
Right. Sometimes we have to do a lot of research. I mean, some of these episodes I can really just do off the top of my head because I'm a computer science professor. I work in software. I have experience working as a software developer, and I've been passionate about software since I was a little kid. So for 30 years now, and I read software history all the time. I mean, it really is my life and my passion. But some of these topics I don't know that much about. I can give you an example about when we're planning for the future. We're planning an episode about Grace Hopper. So Rebecca has been doing a lot of research on Grace Hopper. Grace Hopper is a really famous programmer, one of the people who really came up with the whole concept of having high-level programming languages. So a really important figure.
Well, don't give it all away, Dave. You have to save some for the episode.
We'll save some for the episode. But so that's a topic that I just don't happen to know a lot of the details of Grace Hopper's life. So Rebecca's really been doing a lot of research. So there topics come up where we really do put a lot of time into preparing for the episode. And then there's some topics that I just know so much about, for example, the history of Mac OS, that I can just do them off the top of my head pretty much. And we just have a few notes beforehand about what we want to talk about and when we're going to segue from one topic to another. So yes, a lot of the episodes are off the cuff, but it really is a mix. Some of them are also very meticulously researched, some to the point that we even wrote a script a couple times for every last word of the episode. So talking about that though, let's talk about where we're going in the future. So one thing I think we've discussed is we want to keep doing kind of a mix of different kinds of topics.
Yep, that's right. So we want to continue to talk about the history of software and important figures in software and developers. We find that really interesting, and we think it's important for folks to know about.
Yeah, and we're also going to keep doing general technological concepts as well. So we're going to do general episodes like our episode on artificial intelligence, or our episode on databases or open source software. Those kind of really general, high-level, 30,000-foot view. What do these terms mean? What are the subdisciplines within these areas? We're going to keep doing those really general ones as well. And then we also have some really specific episodes that we've been doing on like news topics. And that's been a bit of a change for us over the last couple months. We started doing more of those. And I think we're going to keep doing those when they're not like going to go stale next week. So, for example, we did one on the GameStop kind of controversy. And I think that one was really something that was like so specific to that week, but we were able to combine it with video game distribution, which is more of an evergreen topic. So we're always going to try to find an angle to the news that makes the episode work well in the back catalog. We're not just going to ever become like a tech news show.
And we'll continue to do some deeper dives into specific technical topics that we think listeners would find useful or interesting.
Right, because we understand that we have an audience that's partially people who are already into software, but a lot of our audience, what we've been hearing from the feedback, is people who are really lay people. And by that, I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean that those are people who, this is not your life. Like, you just want to know a little more about software. You want to understand what everyone's talking about some of these topics, and you don't necessarily want to go do a deep dive beyond what you learn in our show. So we're going to keep doing some of those general topics and high-level topics, but it's for some reason, some of our more technical episodes, like, for example, the programming language episodes, are pretty popular. So we're going to keep doing a mix, some like pretty technical, some more high-level, and we hope that kind of works for both sides. I don't know, maybe sometimes I feel like maybe we should just choose, and we should just go, this is our audience, and we're going to be able to grow more effectively that way. But I think it's still early enough in the show's history that we're going to keep a variety and see where it goes. And we find that more fun anyway, I think.
Absolutely. I like being able to change it up, see what we're interested in that week, and be able to do those deep dives.
All right. Well, we want to thank everyone so much for listening over the last year. It's meant so much to us. And your comments and reviews have also meant a lot to us. Some of you have reached out to us on Twitter, even on LinkedIn. I've gotten messages. People leave reviews for us on various podcast sites. Please keep doing that. It really encourages us and keeps us going. So we really appreciate all of that. And we hope you'll subscribe. And if you haven't already, if this is your first time listening, and look back through our back catalog and hear about all these great topics that we've already covered.
And if there are topics that you want to hear about, definitely let us know. You can find us on Twitter at Kopec Explains, KOPECEXPLAINS.
And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening.